The first time I saw Dante Caruso, my fingers were bleeding. Not literally, but the Rachmaninoff piece I'd been playing for 3 hours straight had worn grooves into my fingertips. The kind of pain that comes from desperation rather than passion. I was at the end of a 6-hour shift playing background music at a mansion party, the kind where waiters circulated with champagne that cost more than my monthly rent, and no one bothered to learn the pianist's name. I didn't mind being invisible. Invisible meant safe. Invisible meant the man who'd shattered a bottle against my collarbone 3 years ago would never find me. The party was winding down, guests filtering toward the marble foyer with their designer coats and practiced laughter. I'd been hired through an agency premium event staff and told only to play classical. Nothing too loud, nothing too memorable. The perfect instructions for someone who'd spent the last 3 years trying to erase herself from existence. I was packing my sheet music when I felt him watching me. You know that sensation, don't you? When the hair on your neck rises and your body recognizes a predator before your mind catches up. I looked up from the piano bench and froze. He stood in the doorway of the ballroom, perfectly still in a way that made everyone else seem frantic by comparison. Tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on Roman coins, all sharp angles and controlled power. His suit was midnight black, tailored so precisely it might have been painted on. But it was his eyes that stopped my breath. Dark as espresso, fixed on me with an intensity that felt physical. He didn't move, didn't smile. Just watched me with the patient focus of someone who always got what he wanted. "You missed a note," he said, his voice carrying across the empty ballroom despite its softness. Third movement. Sha 47. My mouth went dry. Most people couldn't tell Beethoven from Bruno Mars. This man had not only been listening, he'd been listening with the ears of someone classically trained. I'm sorry," I stammered, hating how small my voice sounded. "It's been a long night." He moved then, crossing the ballroom with fluid grace that reminded me of big cats I'd seen in documentaries. Dangerous and hypnotic. When he reached the piano, he didn't sit, he stood beside it, one hand resting on the glossy black surface. "Don't apologize," he said. "I'm offering you a job." I blinked, confused. "I already have a job. Through the agency. Not anymore." His eyes never left my face. "I'm Dante Caruso. This is my home. I want you as my private pianist. 3 evenings a week, 4 hours per session. Triple, whatever the agency pays you." Triple. The number ricocheted through my brain like a bullet. Triple my current rate would mean Noah's medication without choosing between pills and groceries. It would mean his specialist appointments without borrowing from credit cards I couldn't repay. "I don't understand," I said carefully. "You don't know anything about me." Something that might have been amusement flickered in his dark eyes, don't I? He tilted his head slightly. "Sophia Bennett, 26, Juilliard dropout, though not by choice. You left during your final year when your husband," he paused, and the pause felt deliberate, "when your situation changed. You moved to New York 6 months ago from Philadelphia. You worked 3 jobs. Piano at events, morning shifts at a coffee shop, weekend retail at Nordstrom." Ice flooded my veins. My hands clenched on the sheet music, crumpling Chopin. "How do you— I know everything about everyone who enters my home," he interrupted smoothly. "It's how I stay alive in my line of work." His expression didn't change, but something in his tone sharpened. "I also know your son Noah is 4 years old, that he has a congenital heart condition requiring surgery you can't afford, that his name has been on a waiting list at Mount Sinai for 7 months. The world tilted. Noah. He knew about Noah. "Who are you?" I whispered, fear crystallizing into something cold and sharp in my chest. "I told you. Dante Caruso." He reached into his jacket and withdrew a business card, placing it on the piano with precise care. "I'm someone who can make your problems disappear, Sophia. All of them. The medical bills, the exhaustion, the fear that keeps you looking over your shoulder." That last part hit like a physical blow. How did he know I was afraid? How did he know I still checked locks 3 times before bed, still flinched at loud noises? still woke gasping from nightmares where glass shattered against skin. "Accept the job," Dante continued, his voice dropping to something almost gentle. "Your son needs surgery you can't afford. I can arrange it. Private room, best surgeons, no waiting list. All I ask in return is your music." It was too much, too generous, too convenient. Men who offered salvation always wanted something more than they named. "Why?" I asked, proud that my voice barely shook. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" For the first time, Dante smiled. It was a small thing, barely a curve of his lips, but it transformed his face from forbidding to devastating. "Because I protect what's mine," he said simply. "And I've decided that includes you." Before I could process the possessive certainty in those words, he turned and walked away, his footsteps silent on the marble floor. I sat alone at the piano, his business card burning a hole in my vision, and knew with absolute certainty that my life had just changed forever. I just didn't know yet whether I'd been saved or claimed. I accepted Dante Caruso's offer 48 hours later, sitting in a pediatric cardiologist's office while Noah colored in a Spider-Man book, oblivious to the fact that his mother had just sold her soul, or maybe not her soul, just her music, and her freedom, and possibly her sanity. The surgery was scheduled for 3 weeks out. Private room at Mount Sinai, Dr. Elizabeth Chun, the best pediatric cardiac surgeon on the East Coast, and a price tag that made my vision blur. When I tried to discuss payment plans, Dante's assistant, a severe woman named Victoria, simply slid a contract across the desk. "Mr. Caruso handles all medical expenses for household staff. Sign here. Household staff." The words should have stung. Instead, they felt like a lifeline. I moved into the mansion on a grey Tuesday morning, Noah's hand tight in mine as we stood before the raw iron gates. The estate was even more intimidating in daylight, 3 stories of limestone and glass, surrounded by manicured gardens that probably required a full-time staff. The kind of wealth that didn't announce itself, just existed with quiet, absolute certainty. Mrs. Chun, no relation to the surgeon, she informed me curtly, met us at the entrance. She was Chinese-American, maybe 60, with steel-grey hair pulled into a bun so tight it could have been weaponized. "Mr. Caruso is in meetings," she said, her accent pure New York, despite the traditional Chinese embroidered jacket she wore. "I'll show you to your quarters. I expected basement rooms. Maybe a converted servant's wing with narrow windows and institutional furniture." Instead, Mrs. Chun led us up the grand staircase to the 2nd floor, down a hallway lined with oil paintings that belonged in museums, and stopped before a set of double doors. "The East Wing," she announced, pushing them open. I couldn't breathe. The suite was larger than the entire apartment Noah and I had been living in. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens. A living area with a fireplace and velvet furniture in deep navy. 2 bedrooms, one with a queen bed dressed in white linens, the other clearly designed for a child, complete with a wooden train set and shelves of books. "There's been a mistake," I whispered. "I'm just the pianist. I shouldn't—" "Mr. Caruso's orders." Mrs. Chun's expression was unreadable. He was very specific about your accommodations. Noah had already run to the train set, his delighted laughter echoing off the high ceilings. I watched him play, this little boy who'd spent too much of his short life in hospital waiting rooms, and felt something crack inside my chest. What kind of man gives a stranger rooms like this? I found out that evening. The music room was on the main floor, down a corridor I'd missed during the party. When Mrs. Chun led me there at precisely 6 p.m., I stopped in the doorway and forgot how to speak. A Steinway grand piano sat in the center of the room, black and gleaming under a crystal chandelier. The walls were lined with built-in shelves holding leather-bound books and what looked like a collection of vintage vinyl records. French doors opened onto a terrace where the sunset painted everything gold. It was the most beautiful room I'd ever seen. "Play," a voice said behind me. I spun to find Dante settling into a leather armchair in the corner, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. He wore charcoal slacks and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, looking somehow more dangerous in casual clothing than he had in his suit. "I didn't know you'd be here," I said, hating how my pulse kicked up. "It's my house." His eyes never left my face. "Play, Sophia." My hands trembled as I sat at the piano. The keys were perfectly tuned, responsive in a way that cheap rental pianos never were. I chose Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, something safe, something I could play in my sleep. Except I couldn't. Not with Dante watching. I made it through the first page before my left hand faltered on a run. I recovered, but the damage was done. When I finished, silence filled the room like water. "Your technique is flawless," Dante said finally. "Juilliard trained you well, but you're afraid of the crescendo. You hold back at precisely the moment you should soar." I turned on the bench to stare at him. "How do you? I studied piano for 12 years. He set his glass down and stood, moving toward me with that same predatory grace. My mother insisted. She believed music civilized savage souls. He stopped beside the piano, close enough that I could smell his cologne cedar and something darker, more complex. "Did it work?" I asked, then immediately wished I hadn't. His smile was slow, dangerous. "What do you think?" Before I could answer, he continued, "You studied at Juilliard. Top of your class, according to your transcripts. Then you left during your final year." His eyes searched my face. "Your husband destroyed your confidence, didn't he? Made you believe you weren't good enough. That your music was a hobby, not a calling." My throat closed. Marcus's voice echoed in my memory. "You're wasting time on a piano while I pay the bills. No one wants to hear you play, Sophia. You're not that special. How do you know these things?" I whispered. Dante reached out, his hand hovering near my face but not quite touching. "Because I make it my business to know everything about what belongs to me." The possessive phrasing should have terrified me. Instead, heat coiled low in my stomach. "I don't belong to you," I said. But the words came out weak. His eyes darkened. "Don't you?" He stepped back, giving me space I suddenly didn't want. "Play again, Sophia. This time, play like no one's listening. In my house, you're safe to be brilliant." But his eyes said something else entirely. They said, "You're mine now, and I never let go of what's mine." Noah noticed the scar on our third morning in the mansion. We were having breakfast in the kitchen, Mrs. Chun had insisted we didn't need to eat in our rooms, and my son was systematically destroying a stack of chocolate chip pancakes when his sticky finger traced the thin, white line along my collarbone. "Mummy, why do you have a line on your neck?" he asked, his voice carrying that innocent curiosity only 4-year-olds possess. My hand flew to the scar instinctively, covering it. "It's nothing, baby. An old accident. Does it hurt?" Not anymore, but I was lying. It hurt every time I looked in the mirror, every time I buttoned a shirt high enough to hide it, every time I remembered the sound of glass shattering, Marcus's voice screaming that I was ruining his life. The hot blood running down my chest as I clutched my pregnant belly and prayed he wouldn't hit me there. I didn't realize Dante was standing in the doorway until he spoke. "Noah, Mrs. Chun made cookies yesterday. I believe she's hidden them in the pantry." His voice was gentle with my son in a way I'd never heard him speak to adults. "Perhaps you could conduct a reconnaissance mission." Noah's eyes went wide with excitement. He scrambled off his chair and disappeared into the pantry, leaving me alone with a man whose expression had gone very, very cold. "My office," Dante said quietly. "Now, it wasn't a request." I followed him down the hallway, my heart hammering against my ribs. His office was all dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and windows overlooking the estate's garden. The kind of room where fortunes were made and enemies were destroyed. Dante closed the door behind us and leaned against his desk, arms crossed over his chest. "Show me." The scar, Sophia." "Show me." My hands trembled as I reached for the collar of my shirt. Something in his tone made disobedience impossible. I pulled the fabric aside, exposing the jagged white line that ran from my collarbone toward my shoulder, 5 inches of puckered skin that had required 23 stitches. Dante's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking beneath his ear. When he spoke, his voice was deadly soft. Your ex-husband? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Tell me what happened. Dante, it was 3 years ago. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. He pushed off the desk, closing the distance between us in 2 strides. His hand came up to hover near the scar but didn't touch. Tell me. The story came out in broken pieces. How I'd told Marcus I wanted a divorce. How he'd been drinking. How he'd grabbed the champagne bottle we'd been celebrating his promotion. The irony burned, and smashed it against the kitchen counter. How I'd run, but not fast enough. He said if I ever tried to leave him, he'd make sure no man would ever want to look at me again, I whispered. He wanted me to remember that I belonged to him. Dante's expression didn't change. But the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. He buttoned his suit jacket with precise, controlled movements, the kind of control that comes before explosion, not instead of it. His name, he said. Full name. Dante, please. I left him. I moved across the country. He doesn't know where. His name. Something in his eyes made the lie die on my tongue. Marcus Hale. Dante walked to his desk and pressed a button on his phone. 3 seconds later, the door opened and a man appeared, tall, broad-shouldered, with a face that had seen violence and returned it with interest. Vincent, Dante said without looking up from whatever he was writing. I need a complete workup on Marcus Hale. Last known address Philadelphia. Current location, employment, financials, associates, everything. Timeline. Vincent's voice was gravelly, professional. An hour ago. Vincent nodded once and disappeared. I stared at Dante. Fear and something else. Something warm and dangerous flooding through me. Why are you doing this? He looked up, and the possessiveness in his eyes stole my breath. Because someone marked what's mine. And I don't allow that to go unanswered. I'm not. You are. He crossed to me, his hand finally making contact with my skin, fingertips brushing the scar with unexpected gentleness. From the moment you accepted my offer, Sophia, you just didn't realize it yet. That night, I couldn't sleep. Noah was passed out in his room. Exhausted from exploring the mansion's garden with Mrs. Chun, I was standing at my window, watching moonlight paint the ground silver, when I felt him behind me. I spun to find Dante standing in my doorway, still dressed despite the late hour. His expression was carved from stone. Your ex-husband is in New York, he said quietly. He's been here for 2 weeks. And Sophia, his pause made ice form in my veins. He's been looking for you. The envelope was waiting for me on the piano bench. I'd just finished my morning practice batches prelude in C major, something structured and safe to quiet my racing thoughts after last night's revelation. Marcus was in New York. Marcus was looking for me. The words had played on repeat in my head all night like a broken record. The envelope was ivory-colored, expensive paper. My name written across the front in handwriting that made my blood turn to ice. I knew that handwriting. Had seen it on birthday cards and grocery lists and the restraining order I'd filed 3 years ago. My hands shook as I opened it. Photographs. 5 of them, printed on glossy paper. Noah at the playground yesterday, pushing a toy truck through the sandbox. Noah in Mrs. Chun's garden, chasing butterflies. Noah getting into Dante's black town car, Vincent holding the door, all taken from a distance. All taken without my knowledge. All proving that Marcus had been watching us. I flipped the last photo over. On the back, in that familiar handwriting, found you. Did you really think you could hide from me? We need to talk about our son. The world tilted. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the primal terror flooding my system, the same terror I'd felt that night with broken glass and blood. The same terror that had sent me running across the country with a newborn baby and nothing else. I was running before conscious thought kicked in, the photos clutched in my shaking hand. Dante's office door was closed. I could hear voices inside, deep males speaking in rapid Italian. I didn't care. I shoved the door open without knocking. 4 men in expensive suits turned to stare at me. Dante sat behind his desk, his expression shifting from surprise to lethal focus in the space of a heartbeat. "Out," he said quietly. "Not to me." The men filed out without a word, though I caught the curious glances they threw my way. The door clicked shut, leaving us alone. "Sophia," I thrust the photos at him, my breath coming in short gasps. He was watching us. He was watching Noah. Oh God, he knows where we are, he knows. Dante was around the desk in an instant, his hands framing my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. "Breathe," he commanded, his voice calm despite the fury I could see building behind his gaze. "Breathe, Sophia. You're safe. Noah is safe. How can you say that?" My voice cracked. "He's been here, he's been watching. Let me see." Dante took the photos from my trembling hands, his expression going deadly cold as he studied each one. When he flipped to the message on the back, something dark and terrible crossed his face. He pulled out his phone, pressed a single button. "Vincent." "My office. Now." The door opened 10 seconds later. Vincent took one look at Dante's expression, and his entire posture shifted from bodyguard to soldier. "We have a problem," Dante said, handing him the photos. "Marcus Hale has been surveilling the property. I want every camera checked, every security gap identified. And I want to know how he got close enough to take these without being detected." Vincent's jaw tightened as he looked through the photos. "I'll have answers within the hour. You have 30 minutes. Dante's voice could have cut glass. And Vincent prepared the north wing. "Miss Bennet and her son are moving to my private floor." Immediately. My head snapped up. "Dante, I can't. You can and you will." He turned to me, his hands settling on my shoulders. "The east wing has exterior windows, garden access, too many variables. My floor is a fortress. No one enters without my permission. No one. This is too much. I'm bringing danger to your house. You brought nothing." His grip tightened, just slightly. "This man threatened what's mine. That makes him my problem to solve, not yours." "I'm not yours," I whispered, but the words had no conviction. His eyes darkened. "Aren't you?" One hand came up to cup my cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. "You live in my house. Your son plays in my gardens. You play my piano every night. You wear the safety I provide like a second skin." He leaned closer, his breath warm against my face. "You're mine, Sophia. The only question is when you'll stop fighting it." Before I could respond, Vincent cleared his throat. "Sir, there's something else you should know. Marcus Hale checked into the Riverside Hotel yesterday. Room 447. He's not hiding." Dante's expression went blank, the kind of blank that preceded violence. "Good. It's easier to find someone who doesn't know they should hide." He released me, moving back to his desk with controlled precision. His next words were spoken into the phone, quiet and deadly. "Get me everything on Marcus Hale. Bank accounts, phone records, every person he's contacted since arriving in New York. And I want options on my desk by morning." "Options for what?" I asked, though part of me already knew. Dante's eyes met mine across the desk, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw the full extent of what he was capable of. "Options for making him disappear," he said simply. "Permanently." Moving to Dante's floor felt like crossing an invisible line I could never uncross. The north wing was a different world. Where the east wing had been beautiful, this was intimate, designed for one person's comfort, not for show. Dark hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline, furniture in charcoal and cream. Noah's new room connected to mine through a shared bathroom, but mine connected to something else, Dante's bedroom. The door stood open, an invitation I wasn't ready to accept. "The locks are biometric," Dante explained, showing me the security panel. "Only you, me, and Vincent have access. No one else enters this floor without my explicit permission." I watched him program my fingerprint into the system, his hand cradling mine with unexpected gentleness. "This is too much. This is necessary." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "Marcus escalates, Sophia. Men like him always do. I won't risk you or Noah, because you're too proud to accept protection." He was right. I hated that he was right. 3 days passed in tense quiet. Noah was oblivious, delighted by his new room and the train set that had mysteriously expanded overnight. I played piano while Dante worked, the music room becoming our shared space, him at his laptop. Me at the keys, something unspoken building between us. On the 4th day, he appeared in my doorway holding a garment bag. "You're attending an event with me tonight," he said, not asking. I looked up from braiding Noah's hair. "What kind of event?" "A charity gala. Children's Hospital fundraiser." He laid the garment bag across my bed. "Be ready by 7. "Dante, I can't just... You can." He turned to leave, then paused. "And Sophia? This isn't optional. You're my pianist." It's time people knew that. The dress was midnight blue, silk that felt like water against my skin. It had a high neck Linda, deliberately covering my scar, I realized, and a back that plunged to my waist. The kind of dress that cost more than I used to make in 6 months. When I emerged from my room at 7, Dante was waiting in the hallway. He wore a black tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped from a magazine. But it was the way his eyes traveled over me, slow, possessive, hungry, that made heat pool in my stomach. "You're beautiful," he said simply. At the gala, I felt like an imposter among New York's elite. Women dripped with diamonds and bored confidence. Men discussed mergers and political favors like others discussed weather. I stayed close to Dante, hyper-aware of his hand at the small of my bare back. "Caruso!" A silver-haired man approached, champagne in hand. "Didn't expect to see you at these things, Robert." Dante's tone was cordial but cool. "The Children's Hospital is worth the inconvenience." Robert's eyes slid to me, curiosity naked on his face. "And you've brought a guest." "How unusual." "Sophia Bennett," Dante said, his hand pressing more firmly against my back. "My pianist." The way he said it, my pianist sent a clear message. Robert heard it. So did everyone within earshot. "Charmed," Robert said, though his eyes said he was calculating, wondering. "I didn't know you were a patron of the arts, Dante." "I'm a patron of many things." Dante's smile didn't reach his eyes. "When they're worth protecting." Throughout the evening, I felt eyes following us. Heard the whispers, "Caruso never brings dates. She must be someone special. Did you see the way he looks at her?" When the orchestra began playing, Dante led me to the dance floor without asking. His hand settled at my waist, the other capturing mine. And suddenly we were moving, a waltz I half remembered from childhood lessons. "You're shaking," he murmured, pulling me closer. "Your world terrifies me," I admitted. "Good." His breath was warm against my temple. "Fear keeps you alert. But never fear me, Sophia." "I don't," I realized. "I should, but I don't." Something shifted in his expression, satisfaction, possession, something deeper I wasn't ready to name. "Then we're making progress." When we returned to the mansion, he walked me to my door. My door, though it was on his floor now, in his space. "Thank you for tonight," I said softly. "It wasn't a favor." His hand came up to cup my face. "I wanted them to see you with me. I wanted it clear that you're under my protection." "Why does that matter?" "Because it keeps you safe." His thumb brushed across my bottom lip. "And because I wanted to." The honesty in his voice made my heart stutter. Before I could respond, he leaned down and pressed his lips to my forehead. Gentle, chaste, somehow more intimate than a kiss. "Good night, Sophia. Lock your door." I did. And then I stood on the other side, heart racing until I heard his footsteps fade down the hallway. My phone buzzed an hour later. "Unknown number. Saw you at the gala. Playing dress up with your new sugar daddy?" "He can't protect you forever. I'm coming for my son." I stared at the message, fear and fury warring in my chest. Then I did something I'd never done before. I walked to Dante's door and knocked. He opened it immediately, still dressed except for his jacket and tie. His eyes went to my phone, then my face. "He texted," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "He's threatening to take Noah." Dante took the phone, read the message, and his expression went cold as winter. "Come inside," he said quietly. "We need to talk about what happens next." I stepped across his threshold, and somewhere in my mind I knew I was crossing another line. One I would never, ever uncross. Dante's bedroom was exactly what I expected. Minimalist, expensive, controlled. Charcoal walls, king-sized bed with black silk sheets, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. No personal photographs, no clutter. The room of a man who kept his vulnerabilities hidden. He poured 2 glasses of bourbon without asking if I wanted one, handed me one, and gestured to the sitting area by the window. "Sit," he said quietly. "You need to hear this." I obeyed, my legs suddenly weak. Through the window, I could see the estate's perimeter lights, a reminder that somewhere out there, Marcus was circling like a shark. Dante settled across from me, his eyes never leaving my face. "Marcus Hale has no legal rights to Noah. You were never married, and he's not listed on the birth certificate, correct?" I nodded. "I left before Noah was born. Marcus doesn't know his birthday, has never seen him, never paid a cent of support. Good." Dante took a sip of bourbon. "That gives us leverage. I have lawyers who can bury him in paperwork for years. Restraining orders, custody challenges, emergency injunctions. We can make his life legally complicated enough that he gives up." Hope flickered in my chest. "Really? That's option 1. His expression didn't change. "The legal route. Clean, defensible, but slow. And it requires Marcus to respect the law." He paused. "Do you think he will?" I thought about the man who'd held broken glass to my throat, who'd screamed that Noah was his property, his blood, his right. He'd just threatened to take my son despite having no legal claim. "No," I whispered. "He won't stop. He never stops. Then there's option 2. The way he said it made my pulse spike. "Which is, I make him disappear." Dante's voice was calm, matter of fact, discussing murder the way others discussed weather. "Permanently, completely. No body, no evidence, no trail leading back to you or me." My hands tightened on the glass. "You're talking about killing him." "I'm talking about eliminating a threat to what's mine." His eyes held mine. "There's a difference. Is there?" "Yes." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Killing is personal, emotional, sloppy. Elimination is strategic, clean, necessary. Marcus Hale threatens your child. My world has rules, Sophia, and one of them is simple: threaten family. Forfeit your right to exist." The words should have horrified me. Instead, I felt something else. A dark, terrible relief that someone finally understood how dangerous Marcus was. That someone had the power to stop him. "How?" I asked, then hated myself for asking. Do you really want details?" I thought about it, about Noah's laugh, about the scar on my collarbone, about 3 years of looking over my shoulder, jumping at shadows, living in constant fear. "No," I said finally. "I don't want details. I want him gone." Dante's expression shifted. Something like approval, like possession. "Say it clearly, Sophia. No ambiguity. This choice is yours." My heart pounded against my ribs. This was the moment, the line between who I was and who I was becoming. "Make him disappear," I whispered. "I choose Noah's safety, whatever that takes." He stood, crossing to where I sat, and pulled me to my feet. His hands framed my face, thumbs brushing away tears I hadn't realized were falling. "You're sure?" His voice was gentle, despite the violence we were discussing. "Once I do this, there's no taking it back. You'll know what I am, what I'm capable of. I already know." I met his eyes. "You're the man who can keep my son safe. That's all that matters." Something blazed in his dark eyes. Hunger, possession, something deeper I wasn't ready to name. He pulled me against him, his lips finding mine in a kiss that was claiming, consuming, a seal on the choice I'd just made. When we broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against mine. "Give me 48 hours," he murmured. Trust me completely, Sophia. Can you do that? Yes. Then go to bed. Lock your door. And tomorrow, act normally. Play with Noah, practice your piano, pretend everything's fine. And Marcus. His smile was cold, deadly. Marcus is my problem now, not yours. Never yours again. The next morning, I awoke to alarms blaring through the mansion. I threw on a robe and ran to Noah's room. He was still asleep, exhausted from playing in the garden yesterday. My heart hammered as I locked his door from the inside and grabbed my phone. 3 missed calls from Dante. 1 text. Stay in your room. Do not open the door for anyone but me. I moved to the window, and my blood turned to ice. Security lights flooded the garden. 4 of Dante's men surrounded someone on the ground near the perimeter wall. Even from 3 stories up, I recognized the figure struggling against their grip. Marcus. He'd tried to break in. My phone buzzed. Dante. Coming to you now. He appeared at my door 2 minutes later, his expression carved from stone. He tried to scale the east wall. Drunk, armed with a handgun. Horror washed through me. Oh God. Noah could have, if we'd still been in the east wing, but you weren't. His hand settled on my shoulders, steady and sure. You were here. Safe. Because I moved you. What happens now? Now I have him in my security office. And Sophia, his pause made my stomach drop. I need to know. Do you want to see him? To talk to him? Or do you want me to handle this my way? Through the window, I could see them dragging Marcus toward the house. He was screaming something I couldn't hear, fighting against the men holding him. I thought about Noah sleeping peacefully in the next room, about the life we could have without fear, about the choice I'd made last night. Your way, I said, my voice steady. Handle it your way. Dante's eyes darkened with approval. Then go to Noah. Stay with him. And, Sophia, he pulled me close, his lips brushing my temple. It's already done. He just doesn't know it yet. Chapter 7. The decision. I didn't see Marcus. Didn't hear him. Dante's men took him somewhere in the mansion I'd never been, and for that I was grateful. Noah woke an hour later, asking why there were so many cars in the driveway. I told him Mr. Caruso was having a business meeting. He accepted this without question, the way children do, and asked if we could make pancakes normal. I had to act normal. But my hands shook as I measured flour. My mind kept circling back to what was happening somewhere below us, in rooms I couldn't see. What was Dante doing? What was Marcus saying? Was there blood? I forced the thoughts away and focused on my son's laughter. Dante appeared in the kitchen doorway around noon. He'd changed clothes. The shirt he'd worn earlier was gone, replaced by a fresh white button-down. His hair was damp as though he'd just showered. Washing away evidence, some distant part of my brain whispered. Noah, he said, his voice gentle despite the tension in his shoulders. Mrs. Chun made brownies. She needs a taste tester. Can you help? My son scrambled off his chair eagerly. After he disappeared into the pantry with the housekeeper, Dante turned to me. Come with me. His study felt different in daylight, intimidating, more lived in. He closed the door behind us and leaned against it, studying my face with those dark, perceptive eyes. Are you all right? He asked. The question surprised me. You're asking if I'm all right? You made a difficult choice last night. I need to know if you regret it. I thought about Marcus's hands around my throat 3 years ago. His voice promising he'd take Noah the moment I let my guard down. The photos of my son, taken by a man who'd proven he'd stop at nothing. No, I said firmly, I don't regret it. I regret that it's necessary. But I don't regret protecting my son. Something in Dante's expression softened. Could be because it's already in motion. My pulse spiked. What does that mean? He moved to his desk, poured 2 glasses of water, not bourbon, I noticed, and handed me one. It means Marcus Haley is currently in a car driving north. He thinks he's being released, driven to the state line with a warning never to return, but the driver works for me, and there will be an accident on a rural road in approximately, he checked his watch, 4 hours. Single vehicle, driver fled the scene, body never recovered. State police will investigate, find nothing. He'll be listed as missing, presumed dead. The clinical precision with which he described murder should have made me sick. Instead, I felt only cold relief. "Can they trace it to you?" I asked. "No." His certainty was absolute. "I've done this before, Sophia. I know how to make problems disappear." The admission hung between us. I should have been frightened. Should have grabbed Noah and run. Instead, I crossed the space between us and kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, grateful, claiming. His arms came around me immediately, pulling me against the solid heat of his body. When we broke apart, both breathless, his eyes had gone dark with hunger. "You're not afraid of me," he said, wonder and satisfaction mixing in his voice. "I should be, but you're not." "No." I touched his face, feeling the slight stubble along his jaw. "I'm afraid of what I feel for you. I'm afraid of how right this feels. I'm not afraid of you, Dante." He kissed me again, slower this time, deeper. His hands splayed against my back, holding me like I was precious, breakable. "Stay with me tonight," he murmured against my lips. "Not in the guest room. In my bed. Let me hold you while we wait for this to be finished." I should have said no. Should have maintained boundaries. Instead, I nodded. That night, after Noah was asleep and Mrs. Chun had retired to her quarters, I stood at Dante's bedroom door. He opened it before I could knock, as though he'd been waiting. We didn't have sex. Not yet. Instead, he held me against his chest while we lay in his bed, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear, his hand stroking my hair. "It's done," he said softly around midnight. "Vincent just confirmed. Marcus Hale's car went off the road near the Canadian border. No witnesses. State police are searching, but they won't find him." I should have felt guilt, remorse, horror at what I'd sanctioned. Instead, I felt the weight I'd been carrying for 3 years finally lift. "Thank you," I whispered into the darkness. His arms tightened around me. "I would do anything to keep you safe, Sophia. Anything. You understand that now, don't you?" "Yes." "Good." He tilted my face up to his eyes holding mine. "Because tomorrow the police will come. They'll ask questions. And you need to be ready." Fear spiked through me. What do I say? The truth. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. "That your abusive ex-boyfriend found you, threatened you, and you haven't seen him since the restraining order was filed. You know nothing about his whereabouts. And if they don't believe me," his smile was cold, dangerous, "then they'll learn why it's a mistake to question Dante Caruso's household." The news broke on the 3rd day. Man missing after vehicle found abandoned near Canadian border. Marcus Hale, 32, of Philadelphia, last seen. I was playing piano when Dante appeared with his tablet showing me the article. Noah was at the kitchen table with Mrs. Chun, working on alphabet puzzles, blissfully unaware that his biological father had just been erased from existence. "They'll come here," Dante said quietly. "Probably today. His phone records show he was in New York and he has a history with you. It's routine." My hands trembled on the keys. "I can't lie to the police." "You won't have to." He crouched beside the piano bench, his hand covering mine. "You'll tell them exactly what happened. He contacted you, threatened you. You filed for protection. You haven't seen him. All true, except the part where you killed him. They won't ask that question." His voice was calm, certain. "And you don't volunteer information they don't request." The detectives arrived at 2 p.m. 2 of them Detective Sarah Morrison, sharp-eyed and blonde, and Detective James Park, older with kind eyes that probably got suspects to confess. Dante's lawyer, a woman named Rebecca Chun, no relation to Mrs. Chun, she'd clarified, sat beside me in the formal living room. Dante stood by the window, present but not hovering. "Miss Bennett," Detective Morrison began, her notepad open. "We're investigating the disappearance of Marcus Hale. We understand you have a history with him." My mouth went dry. Rebecca nodded slightly, permission to answer. "Yes, we dated years ago. It ended badly." "How badly?" I pulled my collar aside, showing the scar. "This badly. He was abusive. I left him when I was pregnant with my son." Detective Park's expression softened. Did you file charges? No, I was afraid. I just ran. And when did you last see Mr. Hale? 3 years ago. In Philadelphia before I left. Morrison leaned forward. He didn't contact you recently? We have phone records showing he was in New York, in this neighborhood specifically. My heart hammered. He sent threatening texts. I have them saved. He said he wanted to see Noah, his son. I corrected myself, my son. I filed for a restraining order through Mr. Caruso's attorneys. You live here. Morrison's eyes flickered to Dante. With Mr. Caruso? I'm his private pianist, I said, grateful my voice stayed steady. He employs me. When Marcus's threats escalated, Mr. Caruso provided additional security. Did Mr. Hale come to this property? This was the dangerous question. I glanced at Rebecca, who nodded slightly. I don't know. I never saw him. Security handled everything. Morrison turned to Dante. Mr. Caruso, did Marcus Hale approach your property? Dante's expression was neutral, bored almost. Not to my knowledge. Though I have extensive security, if someone attempted unauthorized access, my team would have addressed it before I was notified. We'd like to speak with your security personnel, of course. My head of security, Vincent Russo, can provide any logs you need. Dante's tone was cooperative, accommodating. I hope you find Mr. Hale safely. Domestic violence situations often escalate unpredictably. The interview continued for another 20 minutes. They asked about my relationship with Dante Professional, though the heat in my cheeks suggested otherwise. About Noah's father not listed, my choice. About whether I felt threatened, yes, terrified. Finally, they left with business cards and instructions to call if I remembered anything else. The moment the door closed, my legs gave out. Dante caught me, pulling me against his chest as tremors shook my body. You did perfectly, he murmured into my hair. Perfectly. They know something's wrong. They can feel it. Suspicion isn't evidence. His hand stroked down my spine. They have nothing, Sophia. Nothing that connects Marcus's disappearance to me or you. The investigation will stall, go cold, and eventually close. How can you be so sure? Because this isn't my first time making a problem disappear. He pulled back to look at me, his hands framing my face. Trust me. That night, after Noah was asleep, I found myself back in Dante's bed. This time when he kissed me, I didn't pull away. This time when his hands moved over my body, I arched into his touch. You're mine now, he whispered against my skin. Completely, irrevocably. Say it. I'm yours. I breathed, and meant it with every fiber of my being. Later, as we lay tangled in sheets, his hand tracing lazy patterns on my bare shoulder, he spoke into the darkness. Marry me. I froze. What? He propped himself on one elbow, his eyes serious despite the intimacy we'd just shared. Marry me, Sophia. Make this legal, permanent. Let me adopt Noah. Give him my name, my protection. His hand moved to rest over my heart. You're already mine in every way that matters. Let's make it official. Dante, this is crazy. We barely know each other. I know you're brilliant and brave and fiercely protective of your son. I know you played Chopin when you're nervous and a batch when you're peaceful. I know you take your coffee with too much sugar and check on Noah 3 times every night. His thumb brushed my bottom lip. I know you're the first person who's ever made me want something more than power. Tears blurred my vision. You kill people to protect what's mine. His voice was steady, unapologetic, always to protect what's mine. And you are mine, Sophia. You have been since the moment you played that first wrong note at my party. I should have said no, should have run. Instead, I kissed him and whispered against his lips. Yes. The investigation into Marcus Hale's disappearance lasted exactly 6 weeks. 6 weeks of looking over my shoulder. 6 weeks of jumping every time someone knocked on the door. 6 weeks of waiting for Detective Morrison to appear with handcuffs and questions I couldn't answer, but she never came. Instead, Vincent showed me the official report on a cold Tuesday morning. Case suspended due to lack of evidence. Marcus Hale listed as missing, presumed voluntary disappearance or possible accident. No signs of foul play. It's over, Dante said that night, pulling me into his arms in the music room. He's gone, the investigation is closed, and you're safe. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt numb. I'm an accomplice to murder, I whispered against his chest. You're a mother who protected her child. His hand stroked my hair. There's a difference. Is there? He pulled back to look at me, his dark eyes serious. Yes. Marcus made his choices to hurt you, to threaten Noah, to come here despite warnings. He sealed his own fate the moment he refused to walk away. Do you ever feel guilty? I asked. About the things you've done? Dante was quiet for a long moment. No, he said finally. Guilt requires regret. I regret nothing that keeps my family safe. Family. The words settled over me like a warm blanket. When? I asked, changing the subject before I drowned in moral complexity I couldn't untangle. When do you want to get married? His rare smile appeared. As soon as possible. Next week, if you'll allow it. Next week. I laughed, despite everything. Dante, that's insane. Weddings take months to plan, not my weddings. His hand cupped my face. I don't need a spectacle, Sophia. I need you legally mine. A judge, a marriage license, and Noah as our witness. That's all that matters. Something in his intensity made my breath catch. You really mean it. I never say things I don't mean. We married 8 days later in the mansion's garden, under an arch of white roses that had appeared overnight. Dante wore a charcoal suit that made him look like a prince from dark fairy tales. I wore cream silk that Mrs. Chun had somehow procured in 72 hours. Noah stood between us in a tiny suit, holding the rings on a velvet pillow, so proud he was vibrating. Do you take this man? The judge began. Yes, I interrupted, making Dante's smile break across his face like sunrise. I haven't finished the question. I don't need you to. I looked at Dante, this dangerous, complicated man who'd killed to keep us safe. Yes to all of it. Yes to this. Life. Just yes. Dante's kiss was gentle, despite the possession burning in his eyes. When we broke apart, Noah cheered, and I realized this was real. I was Sophia Caruso now, connected to this man by law and choice and blood debt I'd never acknowledge aloud. The adoption papers were filed the following Monday. Dante's lawyers moved with terrifying efficiency, background checks, home studies, character references from people I'd never met but who apparently owed Dante favors. 6 weeks later, Noah became Noah Caruso legally and permanently. Papa, my son said that night, crawling into Dante's lap while we sat in the music room. Am I really yours now? Dante's expression softened in that way it only did for Noah. You were always mine, Piccolo. Now the law agrees. Noah fell asleep against his chest, and I watched them together. My son and the man who'd chosen him, chosen us, with a ferocity that still took my breath away. Do you regret it? Dante asked quietly, his hand absently stroking Noah's hair. Marrying me? Binding yourself to someone like me? I moved to sit beside them, my head on his shoulder. Ask me again in 20 years. I will. His arm came around me, holding us both. Every year for the rest of our lives, I'll ask. And every year, I hope your answer stays the same. It will, I promised, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. 3 months after the wedding, I woke at dawn with nausea rolling through me. Dante found me in the bathroom, concern etched across his face. Food poisoning? He asked. I shook my head slowly, pieces clicking into place. No, I don't think so. Understanding dawned in his eyes. Sophia, I need to take a test. 20 minutes later, we stood in our bathroom staring at 2 pink lines. Dante's hand found mine, his grip almost painful in its intensity. A baby, he said, wonder in his voice. Our baby. I turned to him, tears streaming down my face. Are you happy? His answer was to drop to his knees, his hands framing my still flat stomach, his forehead pressed against me with something like reverence. Happy doesn't begin to cover it, he whispered. You've given me everything, Sophia. A family. A reason to build instead of destroy. A future worth protecting. As I looked down at this powerful man on his knees before me, I realized something profound. We'd saved each other. He'd eliminated my nightmare. I'd given him something worth more than power. We'd both found home in the most unexpected place. In each other's darkness. 6 months later, I stood in the music room with my daughter in my arms, watching snow fall outside the floor, 2 ceiling windows. Isabella Rose Caruso had arrived 3 weeks early, with Dante's dark hair and my amber eyes. She was perfect in a way that still made my chest ache. Healthy, loved, safe. She looks like you, Dante said from the doorway, his voice soft to avoid waking her. Everyone says she has your eyes, my coloring, your soul. He crossed to us, his hand gentle on our daughter's head. Thank God for that. Noah burst into the room, Vincent trailing behind with an apologetic expression. My son, our son, I corrected myself, was now 5, and convinced his baby sister needed constant protection. Papa, can I hold her? He asked, already climbing onto the couch. Dante settled Noah carefully, then placed Isabella in his arms, supervising with the intensity he brought to everything involving our family. Watching them together, my son cradling his sister with such gentle care, I felt something inside me finally, completely heal. Mrs. Caruso, Vincent said, and I still wasn't used to the name. Detective Morrison is here. She asked to speak with you. Ice flooded my veins. Dante's expression didn't change, but his hand found mine, squeezing once. I've got you. Morrison stood in the foyer, looking uncomfortable. I apologized for the intrusion. I wanted to inform you personally, the Marcus Hale case is being officially closed. Presumed dead, no evidence of foul play. Relief made my knees weak. Thank you for telling me. Her eyes flickered to Dante, then back to me. You've built a good life here, Mrs. Caruso. A safe one. The emphasis on safe carried weight. I hope it stays that way. She knew. Maybe not details, but she knew enough. And she was choosing to walk away. It will, Dante said quietly. I protect what's mine. After Morrison left, I found myself back at the piano. Isabella was asleep in her bassinet beside me. Noah building towers with blocks in the corner, Dante working at his laptop nearby. This had become our routine. Our family existing in shared space, connected by invisible threads of protection and possession, and something deeper I'd finally acknowledged was love. Play something happy, Noah requested without looking up from his blocks. I chose Debussy's Clair de Lune. Not happy exactly, but peaceful. Hopeful. My fingers moved over the keys with a confidence that had been absent 3 years ago when Marcus convinced me I'd never be good enough. You've stopped holding back, Dante observed when I finished. The crescendos are perfect now. I'm not afraid anymore, I realized aloud, as his eyes met mine across the room. Of me? Of anything? I stood, moving to where he sat. You know what I've become, don't you? I'm complicit. An accessory. I chose this. You chose safety for your child. His hand pulled me onto his lap, careful of my still healing body. That's not a crime, Sophia. That's survival. Sometimes I think about Marcus, I admitted quietly, about whether he suffered, whether he knew at the end why it was happening. Do you want to know? I thought about it, surely thought about it, then shook my head. No. I want to be the woman who plays piano while her children play, who doesn't flinch when her husband touches her, who sleeps without nightmares. I touched his face. I want to be who I am now, not who I was then. Then that's who you'll be. He kissed me softly. My wife, my family, mine to protect and cherish for as long as we both live. That night, After the children were asleep and the mansion was quiet, Dante found me standing at our bedroom window, watching the city lights. "Regrets?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind, his hands splaying protectively over my still soft stomach. I leaned back against his solid warmth, thinking about the woman I'd been terrified. Scarred, scrubbing floors and hiding from shadows. Then I thought about the woman I'd become protected, claimed, building a life in a fortress disguised as a home. "Ask me again in 20 years, I said, repeating my promise from our wedding night. "I will." His lips brushed my temple. "And 20 years after that. And every day until we're old and grey and Noah is teaching Isabella to play piano. Bold of you to assume she'll be musical. She's your daughter." His voice carried absolute certainty. "She'll be brilliant at everything." I turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd killed for me, married me, given my son his name and our daughter a future without fear. "I love you," I said, the words still new enough to feel dangerous. His rare, devastating smile appeared. "I know. You chose me over your conscience. That's deeper than love, Sophia. That's devotion." He wasn't wrong. Somewhere in the darkness of moral compromise and blood debt and desperate choices, I'd found something I never expected. A home. Not just a place, but a belonging so complete it had become part of my identity. Some cages aren't prisons. Some are sanctuaries built by dangerous men who understand that true power isn't destruction, it's protection. And I'd surrendered to mine completely, playing piano in a mansion where blood had been spilled, where threats had been eliminated, where a powerful man kept me safe in the only way he knew how, with absolute, unwavering, all-consuming possession. And I wouldn't have it any other way.